Warning: there are French words in this video. I can barely speak English, a language with some rules of pronunciation. I cannot speak French to save my life. There will be mispronunciations. When Gilles le Breton was uniting the Bretonnia tribes into the kingdom of Bretonnia, he traveled throughout the chiefdoms to liberate them from the assaults of greenskins, skaven, and chaos worshippers alike. As he fought, other mighty warriors from the chiefdoms joined him in his quest. The greatest of these horsemen drank from a sacred grail and became superhuman warriors, the first Grail Knights. By the time Gilles reached the lands of Gizero, he already had 9 of his fabled Grail companions at his side. Just like the rest of Bretonnia, Gizero had been overrun by a tide of orcs and goblins, and the Grail companions sought to purge them with sword and flame. Gilles and his companions were joined by the chieftain Baron, master of Gizero, and together the knights met the greenskins in battle. The orcs had brought fellow shamans with them, invoking their foul gods to smite the Bretonnia. Their dark sorcery was to no avail, however, and by battle's end the shamans were beheaded by Lord Balduin of Brionne. Following the battle, Lord Baron immediately pledged his services to Gilles. He drank from the Grail to become one of the Grail companions, and Gizero became the 11th duchy to join what would eventually become the Kingdom of Bretonnia. The Dukedom of Gizero is comprised of 4 culturally and geographically distinct regions. The beating heart of the realm is the plains of Gizero, which supports nearly half of the realm's population. The plains lie between the River Grismere, the Forest of Ardan, the Pale Sisters, and the Grey Mountains. The land is hilly, unfit for most crops, but excellent for herding. As such, most of the region's rural inhabitants are shepherds. The people here, known as Gisorans, are unusually friendly, offering travelers a warm meal and a night's rest free of charge. Any further hospitality comes with the expectation that the guests will earn their keep, though there are plenty of scoundrels and thieves who have lived quite well by scamming this system. When people outside of Gizero speak of the dukedom, they are normally referring to the plains. The city of Gizero itself lies within the plains of Gizero, acting as a hub of activity for merchants, hunters, trappers, and herders. The city guards the open pass between the Pale Sisters and Grey Mountains, known as Gizero Gap. This is the principal land trade route between Bretonnia, the Empire, and the Wasteland, and it boasts more imperial traders than any other city in Bretonnia. This has brought great wealth to the city, though few individuals keep their own fortunes for very long. First and foremost, however, Gizero is a fortress against potential invasions from the Empire. The city's skyline is dominated by Castle Gizero, an immense castle with 1 curtain wall and 2 keeps. Currently, the castle is almost completely abandoned due to Duke Hagen's recent relocation to Couronne. Only 1 keep is currently occupied, with the Duke's steward managing the realm's defense. Most of Gizero's nobles keep townhouses in Castle Gizero's shadow, though many of these are empty as well. The duchy's nobles seem to prefer the countryside to the city, and as such, few spend much time here. While the city of Gizero is the most impressive barrier to imperial invasion through the Gap, it is not the first. Castle des Fleuves stands at the center of the Gizero Gap, and its holder is charged with the defense of the entire pass. The current Marquis, Frederick des Fleuves, has proven perfectly capable in this task, and is currently considering if they want to take the questing vow. The fact there are women disguising herself as a man to retain her autonomy is a fact known only to her most trusted confidants. To the west of the plains of Gizero lies the Forest of Ardan. Life here is further subdivided between the southern and northern portions of the forest. The southern Forest of Ardan is relatively safe, and the flame of civilization has found its way here. Villages dot the landscape, and while they all boast sturdy walls, they can go entire years without being attacked. Trade flows between these settlements on well-patrolled roads, though straying from these paths invites peril. They too engage in the hospitality rites of the plains of Gizero, though they insist that their visitors take a bath under armed guard as well. This is merely a courtesy, of course, and has nothing to do with the fact that it's impossible to hide external mutations while bathing. Considering that the Forest of Ardan is home to Beastmen and mutants, that's merely a pleasant side effect. As one approaches the Pale Sisters, the Forest of Ardan becomes considerably more dangerous. Greenskins, undead, beastmen, and skaven have all made their home here to varying degrees. At one point, even Morgana the Shadowgabe occupied the forest. No settlement has lasted more than a year in the northern portion of the Forest of Ardan, and its human population is entirely nomadic as a result. They make their livings as hunters and trappers, following game trails to avoid detection. These nomads regularly sell their wares to nearby villages, and most make a point of visiting Gizero every few years to retain their social skills. One would think the city dwellers would turn their nose up at these country folk, but that is not the case. The nomads are invaluable sources of intel on the movements of Beastmen war herds, and many towns and villages have survived only because of their warnings. They are almost universally welcomed with open arms as a result. To the north, nestled between the River Sanez and the Pale Sisters, is North Gizero. The land was once part of the Forest of Ardan, but 1,000 years of deforestation and bloodshed has created a relatively safe collection of settlements. It's currently home to nearly a fourth of Gizero's population, making it the second most populous region after the Plains of Gizero. Just like the Plains, North Gizero is a largely pastoral region, though it does have some decent farmland. Its distance from the city of Gizero has historically granted it independence from the rest of the duchy in all but name, and the earls have grown quite fond of this arrangement. Recently, however, Duke Hagen has begun to pay attention to North Gizero once more. This has led to tension, as the inhabitants of North Gizero have developed their own, unorthodox practices that clash with the Duke's strict personal beliefs. The mountain ranges running along Gizero's eastern border comprises the Dukedom's final region. To the south stand the Grey Mountains, ominous monoliths of dark stone with numerous winding paths. They are sparsely populated thanks to the harsh conditions and healthy population of monsters, though a few enterprising individuals make their living as hunters or guides for those wishing to cross between Bretonnia and the Empire by less than official means. The northern range, known as the Pale Sisters, couldn't be more different. Composed of white limestone, the Sisters are known for their round peaks and numerous isolated valleys. Entry to these valleys often requires climbing a cliff, sometimes for days at a time. This makes them relatively safe from external forces, and small villages have popped up in several of them. Harsh winters and difficult paths ensure that leaving a valley is just as difficult as entering, and most inhabitants rarely leave their communities. Odd customs have arisen in this isolation, and other Gisorans consider them strange at best. Still, the safety provided by their solitude attracts new settlers, and the Pale Sisters boast a much higher population than the Grey Mountains as a result. Currently, command of Gizero is held by the valorous Duke Hagen. He completed the Grail vow some time ago, and is exceptionally dedicated to the virtues of chivalry, even for a Grail Knight. This can be inconvenient at times, as his honorable nature is sometimes at odds with the necessary compromises required to manage a domain. Fortunately, the potential damage this could cause has been curtailed by Hagen's recent relocation to Bretonnia's capital of Corogne. He's too far away to throw his realm into turmoil with disastrous displays of chivalry, and his steward manages the day-to-day affairs of Gizero in his stead. Only North Gizero is close enough to feel his influence, something that the local earls are monumentally unhappy with, as previously noted. Still, meddling in his realm is the least of Duke Hagen's duties. Most of his time is spent near Lewin-Leoncourt, where he can offer support and guidance to the king. The two men consider each other close friends, and Lewin knows he can count on the Duke to recommend the most chivalrous course of action. The king is canny enough to know when he should ignore Hagen's advice, of course, but he always takes it into consideration. The Duke, for his part, is deeply troubled by Lewin's willingness to occasionally overlook the strictest laws of chivalry. This is part of the reason Hagen stays so close to Lewin. Despite trusting in his friend's honorable nature completely, he's not entirely sure the king hasn't been corrupted in some way, against his will, of course. While not uncommon in heraldry throughout the entirety of Bretonnia, stags are an exceptionally prominent motif on Gisoran shields and banners. The tradition supposedly dates to the earliest days of the duchy. According to the histories of the Unconquerable Realms, Beren, Gizero's first duke and one of the Grail Companions, was the sole survivor of an ambush within the Forest of Ardan. While the identity of his attackers has been lost to the ages, they were likely either greenskins or beastmen. Whatever the case, Beren survived, but was lost, terribly wounded, and alone in one of the old world's most dangerous forests. He wandered for an unknown period of time, before receiving a vision of a brilliant white hart, which led him to safety. The experience was obviously a profound one for Beren, as he immediately put the stag on his personal heraldry. Many of Gizero's noble houses followed suit, and stags have been closely associated with the realm ever since. For the most part, Gizero is on good terms with its fellow duchies. Traders flow in from across Bretonnia and beyond, and few Gisorans bear ill will towards their neighbors. Still, animosity is never truly vanquished from the hearts of men, and the inhabitants of Gizero are no exception. Historically, the dukedom has had fraught relations with neighboring Baston. While conflict between Bretonnian nobles is officially forbidden, many Gisoran nobles have longed to extend their holdings into Baston. With Duke Hagen spending nearly all of his time in Couronne, some enterprising nobles have taken advantage of the situation and sworn oaths of fealty to the Duke of Baston in return for land in the duchy. This complicates relations between Gizero and Baston further, as oaths sworn to one lord may directly contradict those sworn to another. Artois is also considered suspect by some villagers in the forest of Ardan, though this is more because of their isolationist traditions than any political reason. Finally, like all of Bretonnia, Gizero despises Musion, rightfully viewing it as a haven of death and corruption. In Total War Warhammer, Gizero has been reduced to a single region, acting as the minor settlement in the forest of Ardan province. It's a pretty generic settlement, though it does have a fur resource node. In addition to being a nice little boost to your early game treasury, it also aligns nicely with Gizero's economy and the lore. As previously noted, the Gisorans living within the forest of Ardan make their living as hunters and trappers. It's not the dukedom's primary source of income, but Gizero's markets aren't famous enough to merit a proper landmark in-game. Finally, as it's the first settlement Henrich Kemmler will capture in most games, it gives the Lichmaster a nice boost to his early Direwolf and Vargulf recruitment. This probably isn't how Duke Hagen would probably like his domain to be remembered, but unfortunately that is not up to him to decide. With that brief Total War section done, we've come to the end of our overview of Gizero. I know we spent quite a bit of time covering it, but truthfully, there isn't too much to say about the duchy in regards to the greater story of the Warhammer world. Nothing too interesting happens in it, and no one too important hails from it. I pulled most of this information from the Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 2nd Edition Bretonnia sourcebook, and as you can see, that's mostly focused around what inhabiting Gizero would be like for a role-playing character, not a, tabletop player. As far as I can tell, its only real purpose in tabletop or the lore is to give you a reason to paint stags on your knights. That hints at a broader problem in Bretonnia's design, one which I think I'll make a video about eventually. That's all I have to say for now, though. As always, thank you to my generous patrons, Emmy and Golden Gander. Until next time, this has been Sigmar's Chosen, signing off for now.